Hello and welcome back to another lecture. In this lecture, you will learn how to deploy this website on a Docker container. Before you start this lecture, please sign up for a Docker Hub account if you don't have one, because you will need it to complete this lecture. I will also leave a link to how you can sign up for a free Docker Hub account in this video's description. Also, you can watch the entire project on how to build containerized application using Docker, Amazon ECR, and Amazon ECS on my website. This is the note we will use to complete this project, and I will also include this note in this video's description. Once you have signed up for your Docker Hub account, according to our notes, the next thing we will do is create a repository in Docker Hub. We will use the repository to store the Docker image we built in this lecture. So the first thing we need to do according to our note is go into our Docker Hub account and create a repository. Let's go to our Docker Hub account. In your Docker Hub account, to create a repository, select Repositories up here. Then click Create Repository. Give the repository a name. The name of this project is TechMax, so I'm going to enter that as the repository name. But you can give it any name you want. Once you've given the repository a name, give it a description. Once you have entered the description for your repository, under Visibility, select Public and click Create. We have successfully created a repository in Docker Hub, and when we build our Docker image, we will push that image into this repository. Once we have created the repository in Docker Hub, the next thing we need to do according to our note is launch an EC2 instance, and we will open port 80 and port 22. So let's go to the management console to launch an EC2 instance. In the management console, type EC2 in the search box. Select EC2 under Services. Click Launch Instance and click Launch Instance again. We'll give the EC2 instance a name. I'll call it Docker Server. Once you've given the EC2 instance a name, scroll down. Under Application and OS Images, select the Quick Start tab. On this tab, select Amazon Linux, and it is going to be Amazon Linux 2. If you look here, it is the free tier 1. Make sure you have select Amazon Linux 2, which is the free tier 1. Then scroll down. Under Instance Type, select T2 Micro, and it is also the free tier 1. Then scroll down. Under Key Pair, select the drop down and select a key pair you have in your account. If you don't have a key pair in your account, you can click Create New Key Pair here, and I will also leave a link in this video's description that shows you how to create a key pair in your account if you don't know how to create one. Under Network Settings, click Edit. We will launch this EC2 instance in our default VPC, so make sure your default VPC is selected here. Under Subnet, you can leave it at No Preference, or you can select this drop down and select any subnet you want. It doesn't really matter. Then scroll down. Under Firewall Security Groups, we will create a new security group and we'll give the security group a name. Let's call it Docker Server Security Group. Once you've given your security group a name, scroll down. Under Inbound Security Groups rule, we will add 2 rules. The first rule is going to be on SSH port 22, and the second rule is going to be on HTTP port 80. You can see the SSH rule on port 22 is already automatically added. And another thing you can do here is select the type of source that can SSH into your EC2 instance. For security best practice, it is always good to limit the type of source that can SSH into your EC2 instance to your IP address. So if you select this drop down, you can select my IP, and it will limit the source that can SSH into your EC2 instance to your IP address. Next, we will add the second rule on port 80. Click Add Security Group Rule. Then under Type, select this drop down and look for HTTP. Once you see HTTP, select it. HTTP is on port 80, and under Source Type, select this drop down and select Anywhere. Anywhere means that any traffic coming from anywhere on the internet can access our website. Once you've added the role, scroll down. And these are all the settings we need to launch our EC2 instance. You can also review the settings here, and once you've reviewed them, click Launch Instance. And there you go. We have successfully launched our EC2 instance. I will click View All Instances to see it. And the instance is here. Let's go to our notes. According to our notes, once we have launched our EC2 instance, the next thing we will do is SSH into that EC2 instance and run this command to install Docker on the EC2 instance. So the next thing I want you to do is SSH into your EC2 instance. To SSH into my EC2 instance, I will use PuTTY. So the first thing I need to do is get the public IPv4 address of my Docker server. To get the public IPv4 address of my Docker server, I'll select it. Then under the Details tab, you will see public IPv4 address here. Click this box to copy the IP address. Once you've copied the address, open PuTTY. Then under Session, we are going to type the username of our EC2 instance. It is going to be ec2-user. Then type @ and paste the public IPv4 address you just copied there. Remember, your host name will always be ec2-user at the public IPv4 address of your EC2 instance. Once you've entered your host name, the next thing we need to do is add our private key pair. To enter your private key pair, select the + under SSH. Then select auth. Don't select the +, select auth. Then on auth, click Browse. Browse to wherever your private key pair is saved on your computer. My private key pair is saved here. This is it. I'll select it and click Open. Once you've added your private key pair, click Open. Then click Yes. There you go. We have successfully SSH into our EC2 instance. Once you've SSH into your EC2 instance, the next thing we will do is run these commands to install Docker on our EC2 instance, build our image, and push that image to Docker Hub. I'm going to dock this side by side with my PuTTY session. The first commands we will run are these commands, and these are the commands we need to install Docker on our EC2 instance. If you want to know how I got this command, let me show you. I'll scroll down here. Under my reference note, I'm going to browse here. This is the AWS documentation where I found the command to install Docker on an EC2 instance. So if you scroll down here, you can see installing Docker on Amazon Linux 2. Select this drop down, and here, these are the commands. So the same commands you see in here are the same commands that I pasted in the notes. I'm going to minimize this for now. So I'm going to scroll back up here. The first thing we will do is update our EC2 instance. So I'll copy this command and paste it here, press enter. It is now updating my EC2 instance, and I'll wait for the shell prompt to be available. It has successfully updated my EC2 instance. I'll type clear to clear my screen. Once you've cleared your screen, I'm going to run the next command to install Docker. Once you paste the command, press enter. It is now installing Docker on the EC2 instance. I'll give it some time to finish installing it. It has successfully installed Docker on my EC2 instance. I'll clear my screen again. I'm only clearing my screen so you can see the commands better. Then the next command we will run is the command to start Docker. I'll copy this command and paste it here. Press enter. And it has started the Docker service. The next command we will run will ensure that the Docker service is always in the start state, even when we reboot our EC2 instance. So copy this command. This command is also optional, but I always like to run it. Copy it and paste it in here. Press enter. The next command we will run will allow us to add the EC2 user to the Docker group. The reason why you want to run this command is because when you start building your image with the Docker commands like docker build, docker login, you don't have to add sudo at the end. So I'm going to copy this command and paste it here and press enter. According to the AWS documentation, I can show you. I'll scroll down to here. After you've run this command, they want you to log out of your SSH session and log back in to pick up the changes. So that's what we will do here. I'm just going to close my SSH session here. Then I'm going to open PuTTY again to log back in. Once you log back into your SSH session, we will run this command to test that we can run Docker commands without sudo. I'll copy this command and I'll paste it here and press enter. And there you go. We can run Docker command without sudo. I'm going to clear the screen. Once you have installed Docker on your EC2 instance, the next thing we need to do is create a Docker file. And a Docker file contains all the commands we want to run to build our Docker image. I already created a video here that explains how to create this particular Docker file. I'll leave a link to that video in this video's description. This is the Docker file we will use to build the Docker image in this lecture. I will add the link to this Docker file in this video's description. So the next thing I want you to do is copy everything in this Docker file. To copy everything in this Docker file, I'll select Ctrl A, then right click and select copy. Once you've copied everything in this Docker file, we will create a Docker file on our EC2 instance and paste these commands in it. To create a Docker file on your EC2 instance, type sudo vi dockerfile like this. Please note that when I type my Docker file, the D is in capital letter. So when you type your Docker file, make sure your D is in capital letter. Once you type sudo vi dockerfile, press enter. And this is going to open the vi editor. To paste this command in our Docker file on the EC2 instance, first you have to be in insert mode. So press I on your computer to go into insert mode. If you look down here, it is saying Docker file. When I press I, this will change to insert. Before you can paste this command in the Docker file you created on your EC2 instance, you need to be in insert mode. So watch, when I press I on my computer, you can see it has changed to insert. This means that I can now edit this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste all these commands in there. And there you go. To paste the commands, all I did was right click on my mouse. Once you have pasted the commands, the next thing we will do is exit from the insert mode. To exit out of it, we are going to press the escape key. And now we have exit out of the insert mode. Next, to exit this file and save the changes, we are going to type colon. The second thing you are going to type is WQ and exclamation mark. So this is what you would type, colon, WQ, exclamation mark. This means write quit. So once you type it, press enter. There you go. We have created the Docker file on our EC2 instance, and we have pasted the commands in that Docker file. To show you what is in that Docker file, we are going to type cat and the name of the file. The name of the file is dockerfile. So I'm going to type D. Once you start to type the name of the file, you can press the tab key and it is going to auto-complete it for you. So what this command means is we want to see the content of this Docker file. That is what the cat command does. Press enter. And there you go. You can see the content of that file here. I'm going to clear the screen. To understand the commands in this Docker file, please watch this lecture we did on how to install this website on an EC2 instance. It is the same command that we use to install our website on the EC2 instance that we are using to create our Docker file. Once we have created our Docker file on the EC2 instance, I'll close this. I don't need it anymore. The next thing we need to do is run this command to build our Docker image. The command we need to run is docker build -t. The T stands for tag, and you give it a tag name. So here I'm tagging my image TechMax. You can give your image any tag you want. I'll copy this command and paste it here. So remember, the command is docker build -t. The T stands for tag, and you can give it any tag name you want. You can use the tag name that I'm using here, or you can give it any tag name you want. Also make sure that you have a period at the end. This means that the Docker file we want to build is in the same directory we are running the command from. Once you've entered the command to build your Docker image, press enter. And there you go. We are now building the Docker image. When we are building the Docker image, what is happening is it is running all the commands we listed in the Docker file and installing whatever we specify under those commands. And I'll give it some time to finish building it. There you go. We have successfully built our Docker image. I'm going to clear the screen by typing clear. To see the image we just built, type docker image ls. Once you type docker image ls, press enter. And there you go. You can see the image we just built here. Once you have built the Docker image, the next thing we will do is push the image to our repository in Docker Hub to store the image there. Before you can push your image to your Docker Hub repository, first you need to log in. And this is the command you will use to log in. The command is docker login with the flag username. So let's type that. Once you type docker login --username, add another space. Then the next thing you need to enter is the username of your Docker Hub account. Let me go to my Docker Hub account to show you. In your Docker Hub account, you will see your username up here. This is what you need to enter after your command. So my username is aosnote77. Once you've entered the command, press enter. And the next thing it is going to ask you for is the password to your Docker Hub account. So whatever password you use to log into your Docker Hub account, that is what you will enter in here. Please note that when you enter the password, it is not going to show it on the screen. Just type your password. Once you've typed your password, press enter. And there you go. I have successfully logged into my Docker Hub account. To know that you have successfully logged in, you will see login succeeded here. Once you have successfully logged into your Docker Hub account, the next thing we will do is give the image we created up here a new name. So that is what this command means. We are going to type the command. It is docker tag. Once you type docker tag, the name of the tag of the image we created is here. I'm going to type it. I called it techmax. Then add another space. And here you will enter your Docker ID. Let me show you where this information is. So what I always do is I'll go to my Docker Hub account. In my Docker Hub account, I'll select repositories. This is the repository I just created that I want to push the image to. So the name you see here is what I will enter in my command. That is what you are seeing under this command. The name of my repository is my Docker ID /techmax, which is aosnote77 /techmax. That is what I will enter in here. Once you've entered it, press enter. We have successfully used docker tag to give this image a new name. Now, if we type docker image ls again, once you type docker image ls, press enter. I'm going to drag this out a little bit more, and I'll type the command again so you can see it better. There you go. You can see the image we just tagged a new name is here. Now that we have tagged this image a new name, we can push this image to our Docker Hub repository. And this is the command you will use to push the image to your Docker Hub repository. The command is docker push, then the name of your repository. Remember, the name of my repository that I just showed you in Docker Hub is my Docker ID /techmax. Let me show you again. This is the repository I want to push the image to. If I click refresh now, you can see there isn't any image in this repository. And the name of this repository is AOS Note 77/techmax. That is what I will enter here. After you type docker push, enter another space and type the name of your repository. Again, this is the command. It is docker push and the name of your repository in Docker Hub. Once you've typed the command, press enter. And there you go. We are now pushing the image to our repository in Docker Hub. I'll give it some time to finish pushing it. We have successfully pushed the image to the Docker Hub repository. Now let's go to the Docker Hub repository to check that the image is there. This is the Docker Hub repository. I'll click refresh here. And there you go. You can see the image we just pushed is there. We pushed it a minute ago and the tag is latest. Let's go back to our SSH session. In the SSH session, I'm going to clear the screen. The last command I have here is the command that we will use to test that the image we just built is working and we can access our website. To list the image again, we will type docker image ls. Once you type docker image ls, press enter. And these are all the images we have built. This is the new tag name we gave the image that we pushed to our repository in Docker Hub. The next thing we will do is run this command to test that this image is working and we can access our website. The command is docker run. We'll type docker run. Then add a space and we will type -dp. The D stands for detach mode and the P stands for port. The port we want to run our container on is port 80. So here we will enter 80:80. Once you enter 80:80, enter another space. Then we will enter the name of the image we want to test. The name of the image is AOS Note 77/techmax. So whatever the name of the image you push to your Docker Hub repository is, that is what you will enter here. Once you've typed the command, press enter. The container is now running. To see if we can access our website, let's go to our EC2 instance in the management console. In the management console, select your Docker server, then copy the public IPv4 DNS of your Docker server. To copy it, click this box. Then let's open a new web browser and paste it in. Press enter. There you go. We can access our website, and this website is running on a Docker container. So far in this lecture, we built our Docker image and pushed that image to our repository in Docker Hub. We also test the image to make sure that the image is working and we can access the website. The next thing we are going to do is stop the container that is running and clean up our environment. Let's go back to our SSH session. To stop the container that is running, first we have to get the ID of the container. And this is the command you can use to get the ID of your container that is running. Type docker ps. When you type docker ps and press enter, it is going to give you the information of the container that you have running. You can see the information of the container here, and this is the ID of the container. What I want you to do is select the ID of the container and copy it by pressing Ctrl+C. Once you've copied the ID of the container, this is the command you will use to stop the container. You will type docker stop. Once you type docker stop, enter another space and paste the ID of the container next to it. This is the command. It is docker stop and the ID of the container you want to stop. Press enter. We have stopped the container. If you type docker ps again and press enter, you can see we don't have any containers running. The next thing we are going to do is terminate our EC2 instance. So what I'm going to do is close the SSH session. Then I'll go back to the management console. In the management console, select your Docker server, then select instance state and select terminate instance. Then click terminate. We have successfully terminated the EC2 instance. I'll click refresh and the EC2 instance is shutting down. This is how you use an EC2 instance to build a Docker image and push the image to your Docker Hub repository. If you have any questions on this lecture or there's any part you don't understand, please leave your comments below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.